Hello, welcome back. This is a fourth lesson of the GS170 Introduction to Computers. We have been talking about overview of a computer system and about the hardware. And the last week we talked about something about the software. Then today we'll go to the software aspect, that is the operating system. Most common form of the operating system you may use is Windows. So our textbook has in chapter 5 the Windows OS, and I'm following that. Unfortunately, our book is a little outdated and talking about Windows 7, but now it is the time for Windows 10, so I'll focus on mostly on Windows 10. But we'll talk about the general principle and the overview in terms of Windows operating system from the beginning. So whether it's a version 7 or Windows 8 or Windows 10, it will make a very little difference. So let's see what we're going to talk about. So the week 4 coverage will be Microsoft Windows operating system, and we'll have a little short review of operating system software and a little history of a software. I'm old timer, so I always prefer to talk about the history. Actually, this history is something that I have grown with. So and it's kind of interesting. There are all nitty-gritty and the new developments you can find very easily from the references, or you already may know it, but maybe the history of this software may be interesting to you. And also a thing very important known as GUI, that's the graphical user interface, is also the really part of our daily usage. Then we'll talk briefly about the file system and some new features of the Windows 10. So we had a little review of the software, the big classification. We said there are two types. One is the system software, the other one is application software. And I told you last time, maybe you caught that, but when you are downloading apps for your smartphone, tablet, or even your the desktop, then app actually comes from the word application. Application software is abbreviation of application software, that is an app. So the idea is that system software is the kind of a software setting the environment, and the main purpose is that making the access to the hardware easier and more efficient. So system software, so we had this diagram, we're user here, and then hardware, the machine, the Wonder machine is down in here. So we want to access this fellow, but unless you are electronics person with a highly trained the knowledge about the individual, the working of those parts like diodes and transistors and the IC chips, it's very difficult how to make this a dumb looking thing to make it draw pictures and to create my report in word processor, or the check for my friends from the social network, so on and so on. So that's the kind of the mystery, but the mystery is solved when we say we have a whole bunch of software that will do all those nitty-gritty electronic the interface work to the hardware for us. So we don't have to know all the detail of how does that work. Then on top of that, system software will give us more of the tools to make our usage much more useful. So I made an analogy like when you go to a building, suppose you go to the new building and the room, you don't know what to use for, but at least it has plumbing, it has lighting, it has air conditioning, and often that it has a water line and a gas line, so that it can be converted into whatever purposes, whether you want to use it as some kind of cooking area or some kind of a recreation area or some education facility, whatever the case, that specific need can be determined later, but overall infrastructure or the background, the facility and setting can be done. That is what is called the hardware and system software. So by the way, very frequently you will hear the word platform. So what is my platform? Then you say, okay, my platform may be PC, desktop, or my smartphone may be my platform for my computing or my computer usage or communicating with the others. Platform is the term used that some kind of area or setting or environment I can do some things. So very frequently, the amount of things you can do in this platform is enormous. So very large. So I would call this a platform is just like a big stage. There you can do the boxing, or you can do singing, you can do some kind of acting like that. So it's more like the environment set up for computing or information processing. Then what kind of information processing you want to do? You want to do write a letter, or you want to do a wonderful newsletter to create, or you want to draw some nice picture, or do architectural design, or you compose the music using computer. All those detailed and the specific action is determined by application software. So in your smartphone, you download some social network app, then you will start doing like the Facebook or Kakao, like that, or you can download the app like a reading barcode. Then it will specifically do that barcode, or game. You can do that. So we say the user is high, machine is low. Well, better be. We cannot say machine is above us. So we have a high level software that's more of application software. Low level is more like the system software, and that these two together, hardware and its software to work on, is called a platform. Sometimes the software and some system has all the necessary utility or necessary library that's useful for this work. So people call that one as a battery included. In other words, you can do anything without worrying about I need this, we don't have this, we don't have that, anything like that. So anyway, on top level, there's user interface and some productivity software, like those specific software, like designing or the graphics. And then, so we have a whole bunch of those then database or internet browser included, and then the system software and then hardware. That kind of the relationship that exists in terms of a software picture. Then the system software has the main thing is an operating system. There's a utility and the programming languages that I included. But the main focus being operating system, we won't worry about, or we don't touch on programming language in this course. I wish I have the time to do that. Like Python is the kind of a language you can learn very easy. I have been teaching Python language to like elementary school kids, and they after a few kind of struggling, then they do pretty good job. So, and then the Python is a type of language that's really battery included, meaning that it is everything you can do. If you want to do a security related program, you can do that. You want to do database, you can do that. You can have some kind of a composition of a music, you can do that. Or anything can be done. But we are interested in mostly on operating system as a system software. So in the case that is responsible for management and accessibility. So it's a manager managing and handling the hardware and then interface between human and the machine. So there are a lot of things to manage. When you are the chairman of a big corporation, there are a lot of things to worry about. There are the finance issues, and there's personnel issues, and the product issues, and the trade issues, tax issues, whole bunch similar to that. That this big manager, that's operating system, has a process to manage. Process to manage means that actually process is the same word as a job, slightly different, but it's a job. So there are a lot of things to do. So for example, if you are using computer, you are not just doing one thing. Sometimes you're doing many things at the same time. You are watching the YouTube while they're writing your letter, and meanwhile you do some computation, and also you are listening to some kind of a lecture, or you are composing something, you are drawing something. So many things it can be done. And not only that, while we are working on it without us knowing it, there's a virus program running on the background, and when there's a printing job to be done, then that's done in the background. So a whole bunch of that, how to control the traffic flows. That is what the operating system will do, so that whole job will be done smoothly with a minimum delay and very efficiently and fairly. Then memory, we had the main memory, and then there's a secondary storage. So we said that hardware has a processor and a storage device, but there's a primary storage and the secondary, and the secondary. So primary storage is what is installed in the computer, and that is needed storage for processing data. But that information or that storage, the contents, is vanishing when you are finished with those usage. So at the end, or when you start, then every file must be stored somewhere in secondary storage. That is usually devices like a disk, or old days we have a tape or the floppy drive, or these days either disk or from cloud. Cloud is meaning some data coming through the internet. Then each file, I'll define what's meant by file today, but the file management, this is important. And then every computer these days has, I'm talking about computer, not smartphone, the computer has a disk drive, so that's where all huge amount of data is stored, and that need to be properly managed. Then very important thing about the security maintenance, and then also that accessibility wise, that the user interface. So how would you make those accesses to the computer system, and how would you command your intention to the computer to follow? Okay. So we talked about many functions of the operating system. There's a thing called the GUI, that's for the interface, and then driving driver. If your data is in CD, then it must be coming from there. And then security issues, networking issues, disk management, memory management, process management, as I said. And then we said there are quite a few the operating systems. actually hundreds of operating systems, but it boils down to Windows and the Mac and the Linux, and for the small computer system, that is your smartphone or tablet, Android become the predominant operating system. So every operating system has its own the components, including those managers and the interface part. So I told you that you can get what kind of operating system there exists. There are quite a few. You don't have to know every one of them. Actually, you better not know all of them. That's a headache. But at least that there are quite a few. That's nice to know about it. So let me talk about the old story, or the ancient history. So for many of you, 1970 is a very old time. Maybe you're not even born. So around the 1970s, actually computer, I think I said on the first day lecture that in 19th century, and early the 20th century, there is a job description or the kind of a group of people whose the occupation was computing, and we call them computer. So computer are human, not the machine as we know. Because computing people, like a baker, that's the baking the bread, and the people doing that, like that one. So the computer was started very early in the 1940s and the 50s and the 60s. Very large primitive system, but as a part of a war effort, World War One. They didn't much. They have much, but starting World War II, then the computer started working on, or they needed to be part of it. But so for general public, the computer is something you cannot access. But around the 1960s and then the early 70s, they started having some old system. Computers started become affordable. So in late 1970s, there were a few companies making very small scale computer. You can actually handle some the data processing, but unfortunately that's more like a toy than the actual computer. But around the 1979 to 80, then 81, IBM PC, and then the Apple computer, Apple 1, 2, 3. So all the IBM PC, this one, they didn't have any hard drive. There's a floppy drive, a keyboard, and the monitor is huge. And I bought one after saving money because whole thing costed $2,000. So the 1981, 2, and the 2000 is a big money, but it can do very little, but at least that you can do the program and you can do kind of a number crunching. So it was pretty interesting. The speed was very slow, and the main memory was in just very little, just like the kilobytes rather than the megabytes or gigabytes like today. Then soon that the Steve Jobs and then Wozniak, that they had in their garage, that they created this Apple computer. So this become the more like to the school or the children the usage. So they marketed this one already very heavily to the school, elementary school, so that students can they learn the basic programming in Apple. Maybe many of you had that chance of the first access to the computer being Apple computer. Now, this one, we needed the good software to work on. So what kind of software should we run? In other words, that hardware alone wouldn't do the job. You're sitting there doing nothing. But you need some kind of a system that is operating system. There was a very little application software, so you could do some simple calculations and some spreadsheets, but very rudimentary. Nevertheless, that it was just a wonder, how can I do this kind of computation in this small machine? That's the kind of wonders, but what kind of operating system should we use? So that we didn't know what is meant by operating system that time, but somehow it comes up with a program called the DOS. Actually, so it's standing for, actually initially called QDOS. So Bill Gates, you know who he is, one of the richest person in the whole world because of Microsoft. He started with this. So he created not created, but he just modified some existing program into QDOS and installed that. Actually, this one is IBM. IBM, the company, designed and created this machine. Thing about the IBM is that time they had all those architecture, what is going on inside the circuit and what kind of a chip to use. Everything was all the open. So it's called the open architecture. What does that mean is that people who has any knowledge of this electronics will know that how the inside this circuits and all those signals work. So they can do their own programming. Better yet, many people who had all those knowledge and we can make same thing, because you can get the circuit board and those chips and those things, those functions. So you can build this kind of IBM PC. They call it compatible. IBM compatible, that is much cheaper. So instead of $2,000 that's coming from IBM, many of them sold like 1,500, or if we are lucky and with some kind of twisting the arms, then less than like $900 like that. So getting cheaper. The price is something that driving those the demand, so it become pretty much the popular, and there are so many compatibles created by so many people. Then it is run by the software. You need the software regardless of who made this hardware. So hardware, but you need the software that is called the QDOS. You know what QDOS stand for? You will be surprised. A quick and dirty operating system. So Bill Gates made this operating system very clumsy and not so elegantly. But later that made it a little better, and they cleaned up with the help of more of professionals. So it's called, instead of quick and dirty, that get rid of the Q, and the DOS become disk operating system, because what it did was mostly of the file management and the disk, there's a floppy disk management program. So that's IBM PC, and it was very successful. There was another one, CP/M, was another possible operating system that's much better actually, but DOS is a little sloppy. Nevertheless, that it gets cheaper and easy to use, so it become stuck to the IBM machine. IBM and these compatible machines. Then Apple had their own operating system, kind of based on Unix, and then DOS maintained the command mode of OS. Then, as I said, that Apple had the intention of getting into young the audiences or young customer, because if you make your elementary student, middle or high school students hooked up to this computer, then when they grow up, they become professional or go to college and they become professional, they will try to use this machine. So their marketing the strategy worked. So the Apple computer got stuck to the general public, to especially young people. Problem was that it was too expensive because it's every detail of its design of hardware and software was proprietary, meaning that it is kept a secret. So usually we made a rule of thumb that you can get the same system, but if it is an Apple, it's 3 times more expensive than IBM PC. So whatever the case, that went on. But the Apple people decided to make operating system more user-friendly, because this one, the IBM PC is very difficult to use without remembering all the command. But this the so-called look and feel, you have a visual cue, and oh yeah, here's something, some picture, you just touch that or click that. That's much easier to use and more realistic. So computer world and the real world become pretty much corresponding or similar. So it become the more popular. Then soon that there was the so-called X window, the standard actually coming from Xerox. If you know the Xerox name, that Xerox is a copy machine company, so they made this Windows operating system standards, and then the IBM gladly used that on, so that Windows further went with that the strategy, or that the standards. And so the disk operating system mainly focused on file management, and it has some memory management, but not much, and very primitive user interface. As I said, is command mod. Then first released in 81 and went up to version 7.1. Commercially, it's up to version 6, but it's up to 71 and competing with Apple. So around the time that in 85, this 81, and then this one was around the 90s. So they started, IBM or Microsoft started to develop own system, that is the Windows 1.0 for the GUI, and the success, the version 1 and the 2 in the market, but people say that's still too crude and I don't like it much. So they improved a lot in 1990, that it is getting better. So actually there's a lot of joke came up that every time there's a new version comes in, then usually it's coming too late and too little. That kind of the joke was there. So I was teaching computer science at that time, and we said, oh yeah, the version 5 is released, and there's they got this kind of mistake, this kind of a terrible job, and that used to be our joke. But that doesn't mean that Windows is just terrible from the beginning. It's somehow not so elegant. Nevertheless, it was they done with some kind of the heavy lot of effort. So Windows 10 was first released in 2015. So starting from 85 to 2015, so we are talking about the 30 years almost. So that's a long time between this version 1 to 10, and then. This is our secret, but today I'm recording this on the April 16, but as of April 13, that's the Tuesday of this week, that the latest release of the Windows 10 was published or distributed. So this is one tip. When I'm sure that many of you are owning the computer, and the good chance that your machine is a Windows machine. If it is asking for, do you want to update or upgrade, then say yes. Every time they have a new patch, that's a new improvement or correction of the errors, then they are releasing it right away. That's why they got this so big the sequence number. And especially this is useful, important that every time they have a new release, then they have the defense against the virus. Actually, we call malware. You know, hardware, software, firmware, those kind of ware, that's the thing. Mal is a bad. So bad software, usually virus, Trojan, and hacking programs, those kind of bad program is called malware. Maybe last lesson on the whole session, we'll talk about some of those security issues. That's the area I'm teaching mostly in the university. So security is very important. Anyway, so that's what happened, and then the DOS the DOS itself become integrated into Windows operating system, and the over 90% of the whole world market is dominated by Windows. What's the other one? Of course, Apple. And then there's Unix. But why the 90% of the market it is taking? Reason is that all those the architecture of the IBM machines are open, is available, so people can generate the application software much easier. So instead of just that company is making, that anybody, including yourself or me, that who got any training or the knowledge of the programming, can create own application. That's the beauty of that. So right now that the Windows dominant operating system, but lost the market share to Android because of a smartphone and the tablet. So tablet and the smartphone, almost everybody has a tablet or smartphone. Actually, the number of a smartphone is larger than the number of computers owned by general public. So those smartphones are usually in with the Android. Of course, the iPhone has its own operating system. It's different, and the tablet again is IBM, Apple tablets, and some the proprietary form is has its own operating system, but most of the smartphone and tablets are in Android. Then it is amazing that 138 different languages, there are versions of the Windows operating system that many all over the world. So this is a little history. I wanted to go over individual thing, but it's really time consuming, and already I got a half an hour chewed up. So the menu scroll bar was there. Then in here, some kind of minimizing, maximizing the windows that was introduced in version 2. Then still isn't that good, but 3, they have a program manager, file manager, printer manager, this kind of things that made it acceptable, usable. Then the Windows 3.1 is actually the one they use them very widely. So it is the multi-user group is allowed in one computer. So you can use the one computer by many people. And then Windows 95, of course, is supposed to be released in 95, but it is released in 97-ish, the 98, and XP. XP was one of the most success successful the Windows version. So there's all those detail. Then nice the animation and the engineering, and then the 7 got the functionality and interface more flexible. 8 become actually intended for, it's almost the same as the 7, but it can be used for tablet purposes, like a tablet, and it can have in here that more like you can have a touch panel, so you can use that as a kind of touch screen. And another thing is that it can access with the USB 3.0. You know, the USB, that's a universal serial bus. That is old days that you had to have a different cable for printer, different cable for internet, different cable for mouse, and a different cable for some the other devices like those digitizer. Not anymore. They with a universal serial bus. The bus, by the way, bus is something you ride on to go from one place to the other. That is actually road. So the transmission circuit inside the computer, that is shared, not dedicated, but by shared is called the bus. So bus, by definition, you are riding by many people together. So you know, data bus and the serial bus means that the same line, one line, but that line is being used for more than one type of data traffic. So that's the idea. So USB 3.0 is much faster and got more the accesses. Well, this one, the USB version 2.1 and 2, that's the typical one, is in it can generate transmit 1.5 megabits. That's 1.5 million the bits. That's all seems to be a lot, but when you got a huge data, that's not much. But this 8, the USB 3, that can transmit like 5 gigabits, or 10 gigabits. And right now, very recently, there's a 4.0. I think that's released the 2019. 4.0, that can actually allows 40 gigabyte bits. So it's a huge, this 40,000 times faster than the old one. But anyway, as Windows got increasing, they are creating or adding more features and functions. Now that user interface, there are some generations. I said briefly, but not much. So first generation is a command mode. So you got to memorize everything. There's a long-term memory. Then second one is you got a menu. So you go to a restaurant and you don't remember everything, all those menu, what the food they can serve. But when you got a menu, then, oh, I see that. I'll use this. I'll have this. That kind of idea. So it's a menu-driven system. So it's a short-term memory is needed. And many application softwares are having a menu-driven system. And then there's a GUI, so characterized by WIMP. That's Windows and icon menu pointing devices like our Windows. So this one is a thing called the metaphor. Metaphor is that more like the imitation of reality. That's what it is. So window, you don't, window is not really the window you are looking out, but we are living with an environment where the windows everywhere. So you see that throughout the window you see different pictures because of glasses. You see different the scenery. That scenery happens to be whatever comes inside the computer. So then multimedia, that's the next generation thing, is with audio and data globes. I'll say a little bit more later on. Then soon, someday, when in 10, it's already get started, but 10 years or so, or 20 years, that computer will understand what you think and then we'll do the follow the command. So you just think about, oh, I wanna the search for the best restaurant around here, like that, and it'll start doing it. It's already done, but it's a little more. So it says instead of do WIS, do what I say, but it can do what I mean. Okay, so that's kind of that can be done. Okay. Then Windows, there's a pointing devices. The mouse, what you have is actually the pointing device. So what it is the point and the click. That's the idea. So that makes the interface much faster. So originally invented in 1965 for engineering design, but now that is they're very common. So right now what you are doing is a point and click, or you can do drag and drop. So you can click and hold it and drop it. And then advanced form is a data globe used there, or electrified globe, sometimes called electronic line here. And so you just move your fingers, and that gives some data line into the computer. So you can control by just wiggling your fingers like that. That's very useful in virtual reality. There's a VR and there's a AR, augmented reality. The difference, hopefully I can talk about that later. Then the design of a Windows screen is that after booting, you'll get initial screen very much like that. By the way, what's meant by booting? Some of you may know, but the booting is a bootstrapping. Bootstrap is your shoelace. So you have that shoe, the lace, then you can pull, and it's a short, what you see is a very short string, but you have a long string. That's the idea. So you click it, the initial program is very short, but it's triggers, and making a whole thing, including dumping out all those icons into the screen. So there are a few things. There's a whole, screen area is called the desktop. What's meant by that? It's like your desk. On top of your desk, there may be many things laying around. So even if it's a Windows that is more like you can see the scenery on your desktop. That's the idea. Then taskbar is what you're going to do. That's at the bottom. There's a whole bunch of small icons. So in fact, there are the human-computer interaction (HCI) the course that I used to teach about there. That we talking about the psychology and the mechanics of designing these icons. There's a 5-second rule, right? Sometimes the 10-second rule. So just without saying any, reading any the caption here, just to look at the symbol, those graphic, and within 5 to 10 seconds, you should be able to figure out what it is all about, or what it is that for. And sometimes it's hard, but that's the icon. So icon is more like a button that going to a certain application program or some program to start. And then there's a start button that is on the bottom here. There's a Windows button key. And then system tray. When you are open several the programming, then at the bottom of on the right hand side of your screen, you will see new icons showing. That is called the system tray or notification area. That's where what kind of program is right now running. Okay, then the pinned icon means that here you can put something in here, that one, so that you can click easy. That is called that the pinned icons. And there is a start menus next one. And when you are using mouse, that there are usually 2-button mouse. Actually, Macintosh has just 1 button, but the typical Windows version takes 2 buttons. So left button is a single click, is just a select. So when you click this one, then it will be highlighted. But if you click twice quickly, like that one, then it'll open it or execute it. That's the principle, in case you didn't know. Then But if you have pinned those icons, you can drag it, one of them down in here and drop it, drag and drop, and then you will see some icons here. That one, just a single click will open it. And the right button is invariably, well, you tried it, any icon or any location, you click right button, then there comes a menu that relevant to that icon or that situation, like those desktops. So they always think about why am I doing clicking? Okay, one click is for selecting it, and twice quickly like that. That is for opening it and let it run. And when you click this window, this start key, start button here, then it'll just show this is all the application, all the program that's available. So you can go down and you will find what it is. And there will be frequently used program applications are brought in here. That is called pin. So you go down in here, for example, I want to have my 7-zip available all the time. Then you click, you right click this one, then you will have the menu, and there's a pin to the start menu. This is a start menu, and you can drag it out to this taskbar menu. So these icons are pinned to taskbar, and these icons are pinned to a start menu. And this one is the background and the different icons for this individual operating the program. I said file system is very important. So let's see, what is file? File is a named data unit. That is that, first of all, it must have a name. Because remember that the file is the information that it must come from somewhere, and there's a primary storage, but when computer is turned off, then all the data is erased. So you need to store that one permanently. So that must be somewhere, some storage devices. So whether that can be hard drive, disk drive, or CD, or network, or whatever other devices. All of this, there was a tape or something. So, but anyway, and we need some data. So in Windows operating system, that file system is the kind of a little bit advanced form of all the DOS specification. So it has a naming convention. That is that first of all, C or something that drives. So this is A drive, A colon, B colon, C colon. This one is what is the drive from. The drive is where those medium for data storage exist. So A and B used to be floppy drive, and these days it's not used anymore. So A and B is there, but it's not used. Then C is hard drive, D is hard drive, and after that one, when you add new devices, then it'll be increasing this one as D, E, F, G, something like that. Then if we have the network drive, that is that connecting some other location on the network in the cloud, something like that kind of concept, then you can usually it's a convention that you assign that one as a Z colon and Y colon and X colon backwards like that. So there are 26 in the alphabet. So 26 locations of data to come from. That's good enough. So that's called the drive. So your hard drive and the second drive like that. Then there's a file name. This file name is all this much. So first of all, this is actually file name, and then this group is a directory. So it has a thing called the folder. You know that folder, that's a collection of the data. So what it is that the directory system is such a way, there's a top level, that's actually called root, and from there next layer, and there's a next layer. So you can go from here to next, and the next. So this one is just the single backslash in right after the drive name. then it is top level. Then after that, every time you do slash, then it will going down, down, down. In fact, that the Unix operating system, they have a forward slash instead of backward, but DOS decided to make it backwards. So after that, then no more slashes, then the last slash after the name is the name identifying it. Of course, you can move this guy into the root directory or above it in the tree anywhere you like. But right now, usually people group them according to their need. So that's the file name. Old days, the file name was only 8-character maximum and only alphabet and the numbers, but not anymore. It has quite a few options, and then you can have a special characters, but you are not allowed to have a colon or question mark or the exclamation mark like that. Then very important is this extension. This was .exe, the T, or the text dog, AU, HTML. This one tells you what kind of a file it is, what nature of that. For example, we know that this is just the text file we can read. This is document file from Microsoft Word. This one is audio file. They usually from the Apple line of the products. HTML is for the website, the comments. So it depends on those the extension, those the end of those extension dot something, that it can give you the idea. And then computer system, operating system, when opening this file that has this extension, will know what kind of a program to open with. So actually you can override it if you have that for the name of the file, right click and there's open with the command, then it will be changing. But in general, there's a default application that AU, then they know what to do, and the HTML, they know what to do. Sometimes that the operating system, you use the extension that you have never used, then it doesn't know what to do, then it'll ask you that what kind of a program should be associated with. So file, the application association is something you got to think about. In other words, that which software will run this file, or which software will process this data, because the file contains the data. Of course, the file itself may be some program that will be executing. So anything that ending with the exe and the .com, those the files are executing by itself, because itself has a so-called binary file, and a machine command is existing there. Okay, then file system is in general, you can have a file explorer. File explorer can be found in the one of those pinned application, but you can have this file explorer from the clicking the start or Windows button, and so then top of the whole devices and all the file is this PC. Of course, this one is a system specific one, actually, for my file. So like OneDrive, and this one is a Dropbox. That kind of a file also exists, but usually this is where everything starts. And if you everything around in here is actually found in Windows C. That doesn't matter. So this PC's top level of file structure and the file explorer is either pinned in the taskbar, or you click the Windows the button or Start button, then you will find the Windows Explorer, or in the space you can type Windows the file explorer. Then all the directory, all those the layout is found there. And then there are other features like OS has susceptible. Usually, in general, Windows was a little bit weak to the virus and the hacking attack. But the version 10 improved a lot in this defense. And so whenever there is a new update coming up, then go ahead and install it. So as I said, it's a malware. Malware is a bad software that harming your computer or your security or your privacy. So the Windows operating system is Microsoft is keep the collecting those attacking and the defense mechanism as a part of patch the corrections. And Windows 10 is very efficient main memory, and it is running on multi-core, meaning that CPU. You heard about that i3, i5, i7, those kind of processors. They have many CPUs inside one chip. Then some the fancy features like Windows Hello that you can log in by using fingerprint or your eye pattern from camera reads your eyes, and then your iris pattern will be given, and your voice can be used for login. So that all the features are available, and the bundled software, many software comes like Skype that they bought it. So this one is the online conferencing software, and the game one, and Edge is a new browser. They are very fancy, and the Cortana, that is a voice activated interface. Maybe when we get a chance then we can just show you, but the Cortana is a pretty useful and fancy way of the entering your command. Then you can switch between desktop mode to tablet mode. This is very thankful, but once in a while, then you don't know what the layout is, simply doesn't change. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, in the case that you are in tablet mode, even if you are on the laptop, or the other way around, you are on the tablet, but you are in desktop mode, then the layout is all different and it's not working too well. Okay, so conclusion that I'm making, just the ending of it, is by far most popular operating system, and they evolved from older disk operating system, and that's more features and many more features that makes Windows take advantage of a market share. And then to use operating system, you got to familiarize with the file system, because that file system is where all the necessary information of your data to process is handled. So just make sure that you know where is your file, and when you got the collected or got your file, then where in the directory you store your data, and in what name, so that you will later look for it and use it again. Okay, I think that's all. It's kind of I just made the minimum coverage of Windows 10, and still running out of time, and there are so many nitty-gritty details. But just remember that the Windows 10 is on the operating system software, and it is really controlling whole operation of your the desktop or your laptop, the computer. And just familiarizing yourself with Windows 10 will help you increase your productivity. Okay, I think that's all for the day. So thanks for listening, and have a good day. And we'll talk about the application software and the Office suite in the next lesson. Okay, goodbye.